Hey guys, welcome to a new episode of Where the Soulflowers Grow, and this one is very different. It's recorded during Mercury retrograde, and honestly I didn't think I would be able to make it to this point to be able to share it with you. And it's not just the technical issues which I was able to solve. It's also, I realized as I was watching the recording, I realized, oh, I was still in the middle of a process as I was recording this. I thought I had it all figured out on this topic and I was speaking from that place, but in reality I was kind of still in the middle of it. I decided to share this episode with you anyways, and I'm going to do it in a way that I will let you watch or listen to the entire episode, and at the end I'm adding a little epilogue about things that I see differently now, a few days later, as I was rewatching and editing this. So yes, without further ado, here is the Mercury retrograde episode of Where the Soulflowers Grow. I hope you enjoy, I hope you find food for thought in it, and I will see you at the end and share with you my perspective that I have now on this topic. Hi guys, welcome to a new episode of Where the Soulflowers Grow, your podcast for all things personal growth and grounded spirituality. This is the podcast where I share from my own experience, my personal growth journey, because I believe in getting inspired through hearing other people's stories, how they deal with things in their lives. I always appreciate that, and I love sharing my insights and what I'm working through with you in this series. It started out with me buying a house here in Sweden and starting to renovate it, and that whole journey, starting my own business, and it's turned into something else. And I feel like that is so what personal growth is all about, the constant, you discover something about yourself through going for the thing, through going for your dreams, and each desire that is fulfilled creates a new desire, and sometimes that means changing directions. And today I want to talk to you about something that feels very vulnerable. It's about a relationship pattern, and that always kind of makes me nervous to share that with you, but at the same time I still want to, because it's the topic that is probably dearest to my heart, because everything in life at the end of the day is about relationships. Like, our lives are relationships, period. And I want to dive right in. This whole, I've been on a deep dive over the past couple of days and reconnected through parts work with a facilitator with a part of me that I was really disconnected from, the part that really has a hard time depending on other people, trusting others. And that's a huge part of relationships. And all of this was triggered by one simple sentence that somebody said to me, and at the time I didn't even really, it did something to me, and I was like, oh yeah, that's true, but it didn't really come to me like the significance of this sentence that was said until the next day. And what was being said was, you can't discuss everything. You can't discuss everything. And at first glance it's like, oh yeah, sure, that makes sense. Of course you can't discuss everything. And the context was that you can't get to know somebody just by discussing all kinds of things and by asking all kinds of questions. You have to have experiences together. And if you're like me, then discussing things, analyzing things, observing my life and my experiences is a huge part of life for me. And I've always thought that this being able to not just observe, but share my observations and have those kinds of conversations with somebody where you both share your observations and your learnings and your how you see things, and that kind of connection is so special to me, and that makes me feel really seen and understood. And for me, I thought this is how I create connection and deep intimacy. And then that phrase just kind of pulled me into the awareness that yes, that's true. It's one aspect of creating connection and intimacy, being able to express how you experience things, what they mean to you, and share that. But at the same time, it can also be a way of keeping myself from actually stepping into a relationship and keeping a distance to an actual relationship. And I came to that realization that this is the other side of the coin through realizing that me wanting to talk about all the things has something to do with wanting to make sure that nothing can surprise me, wanting to make sure that the other one cannot have any sort of reaction to me that I can't anticipate beforehand. For example, when I'm trying something new with somebody because it's their thing and I want to figure out, do I like this? I don't just let myself have that experience. I don't just go in there, experience the thing, and then maybe go like, this isn't really my thing. I would rather do something else. No. What I do is I prepare the other person beforehand, like I brief them basically on that I might have all sorts of reactions to this and that I expect them to be okay with that, otherwise I won't do it. So, and of course, like anybody would be like, yeah, of course, that's okay. Like you can't really say anything else and that is exactly the point. Because if I just let myself have the experience and realize, oh no, this isn't for me, sure, the other person could be disappointed and that could show in their reaction. And me being somebody who's very afraid of conflict, like I dread that kind of reaction, so I do what I just described. I prepare them beforehand by talking about all the things, going through it so that they know, oh, this might happen, and they know what my expectation of them is, how they should react to that. And that is not only setting myself up, like it's a safety mechanism, but when you look at it more closely, it closes off the possibility for any genuine actual reactions. It's like I have already written a script of what has to happen. And yeah, sure, that can protect me from getting any sort of negative reaction, but it's also keeping me from the opposite. It's also keeping me from having the positive experience that if I don't prep somebody for all the kinds of reactions that I could be having to anything at any given moment, that if I just went into it, had the experience, realized, oh, this isn't for me, and what if they, without me having to instruct them, what if they gave me a positive reaction to that? I would never know because I write the script, so to say, beforehand. I instruct them on this is what's gonna happen or what might happen, so prepare yourself, be prepared to be supportive. So that was a very interesting realization that this me talking about all the things isn't necessarily creating more depth or more connection. It is, in a way, telling the other person what is okay to do and what not, and how to be. That, yeah, it limits the possibility, it limits the connection. It's a little bit like, or not a little bit, I've come to realize it's kind of like, this is like any other fear, really. Like, I think it becomes more clear when let's take the fear of spiders. What I'm doing is basically telling the other person, make sure that I never see a spider so that I'm not confronted with the fact that I have a fear of spiders. Like, and yeah, sure, when you have any sort of fear of anything, of course it's good for the other person to be aware of that and like be kind and all the things, but shielding someone from their fear or from the awareness that they have the fear by taking away all the elements that might trigger that fear. Does that mean that the fear is gone? No, it just means you have taken all the precautions so that you will never be reminded that you have that fear. And that isn't the same thing. And when it comes to relationships, they're hard for us because we were hurt in relationships. And the healing experience isn't to never having to be faced with the fact that we're hurt. The healing experience is to acknowledge the pain. So the exact opposite, not to pretend like it's not there. That's part of the pain, like that's part of why we're suffering, because we're pretending it's not there, or we're not in the awareness that it's there, and we're wanting to stay comfortable. We're wanting to not having to go there again. But at the same time, it's like going there on purpose is what would also give us the opportunity to experience something else. So, meaning, again, in this example, why I don't think it's a very good solution to, like, my strategy of prepping the other person for all the reactions I might be having and that they have to be okay with it. So that would be the way so that I don't ever have to be confronted with that I have pain and fears around relationships. But let's say the other person does that, and like 99 out of 100 times they succeed in giving me all the right reactions. And let's take another example. I thought, like, okay, I get really anxious and nervous if I don't have frequent contact with, like, and we're talking about romantic relationships right now. If I'm not frequently in touch with a person, like on a daily basis, even on the days you don't see each other. So let's say, and that is because if I don't get that, then I worry that there's something wrong and the other person doesn't care about me, that they don't consider me, all the things. So in that case, I thought, yeah, but that's really good that I asked that of somebody, like right from the beginning. They have to be okay with that because that's how I am, that's who I am. And like, if they're not willing to do that, they're just not the right fit for me, and they have to be willing to do this. But so let's say this person does this, and 99 times out of 100 they get it right. They make sure they're in touch with me every day, they check in with me, all the things. And then the 100th time, for whatever reason, they're not able to do that. What's going to happen? Are the 99 times going to count for me? No. I'm going to be hung up on that one time where I didn't get what I thought that I needed from them. And it'll be like those 99 other times didn't exist. And that is because those 99 times of checking in with me weren't like healing me from my fear. They were keeping me away from the fact that I have that fear and anxiety. And it's also saying that I'm still in the mindset of when I don't hear from the other person, it means there's something wrong. And that is the reality. And by demanding that they check in with me daily, I'm still in that mindset. I'm still making that, assigning that meaning that if you don't check in with me, it means something is wrong. Whereas a healthy state would be that everything's good, everything's fine. Nobody needs to give any extra proof of that it's good. And that is something that obviously my nervous system isn't used to. But the way of getting there is not through the other person shielding me from the fact that I have that anxiety. The way to getting there is through accepting that that anxiety is part of my current reality, is turning towards it, it's looking at it, taking an interest in it, taking an interest in where it comes from, all the things that are still there in my system that made me believe that, and acknowledging all the things that I haven't acknowledged about the pain that was caused in the past, and owning that that doesn't have so much to do with what anyone in the present is doing or not doing. This has been a real game changer, and it didn't just come through the realization, and again, this is like a full circle moment of you can't discuss everything. Like, it wasn't enough for me to come to the realization of, oh my goodness, what I'm doing that I think is creating connection is actually part of my safety strategy to keep myself out of a relationship, to keep myself away from having to experience anything negative. No, it wasn't just the realization. I did a parts work with a facilitator that connected me very deeply with the part that is so afraid of depending on other people, that is in so much pain around that. And I couldn't even go there myself. The facilitator took on the part, and that did connect me with the pain. But like initially, when I tried to go there, when I tried to get into that part, I couldn't. But through her getting into that part and me having a conversation with that part and seeing, oh my God, yes, this is me, this is my life. That was the feeling experience that I needed, so that I then could move on and see like, okay, this isn't what I want to be doing anymore. I don't want to keep myself or other people at a distance by talking about all the things. Don't get me wrong. I will always love talking about all the things. So it's not oh, this is wrong, I'm not going to do it anymore, and I'm just going to have all these experiences now. I see it as, okay, we're on a spectrum here, and coming into the awareness of, oh, I'm on this end of the spectrum, and I'm thinking that this is the totality, when in reality there's this whole other thing here on the other side, this other polarity. We live in a world of polarities, right? So here is all the mental, the analysis, the being on that meta level and observing everything, the intellectual side, and here's the experience. And I'm not gonna be like, okay, I'm gonna abandon this now and only try to be in this. It's like, okay, let's see if I can add. Can I hold space for both, and how much? And like this in between here, if you're watching this on YouTube, you can see me make the hand gesture. It's a scale. Like, if I'm very far on this end of the spectrum, can I slowly move myself towards the other end? And can I, by doing that, can I broaden my spectrum of what I'm capable of living? Can I broaden the range of experiences that I allow myself to have? I can still be the person who wants to talk about all the things. I will always be the person who will want to talk about these things on a podcast like this with you guys. And I'm always curious to hear your thoughts on this. And I will always appreciate people in my life with who I can have these kinds of conversations. And I don't think that will ever go away. But I also want to open myself up to, okay, this isn't the everything. This is one end of the spectrum, and I want to practice the other muscle that I have been too scared to practice, to just allow myself to have an experience and allowing others to be in the experience with me without having to prepare them for, I don't know, that, because that's also kind of, I mean, that's normal, right? That is how life works. If you try something, it can go any way. I don't need to prepare people for that, like, separately. That is a given. So I want to do that. I want to try things and allow myself, like, I can have any reaction and others will be accepting of it. They're also allowed to have emotions around it. They're allowed to be disappointed in me, or in the fact that maybe we don't like the same thing, or they're maybe, I don't know, handling it really well or whatever, or maybe I end up liking it, you know, like I want to be more open than what my mind can conceive beforehand. So this was on my heart, and I just wanted to share with you because I feel like this is something, like this thought to me, it just changed so much. And I feel like this is something that those of us who are a lot in the mind and analyzing things, observing things, I think this is an opportunity that we miss. Like, we're using this as a protecting mechanism, and that's fine, like no shade. But if this inspires you to look, okay, where do I think that I'm creating connection and depth and intimacy? Am I really doing that through analyzing and talking about all the things? Or am I in some way preventing myself from having to have a fear around relationships, from the fear of having an interaction go wrong or go in a way that we can't anticipate? Am I in any way keeping myself not only from negative experiences, but am I maybe also keeping myself from having a positive experience, the experience that somebody else reacts well to me even without me instructing them to do so? So yeah, this is what I have for today. So hi again. The reason I decided that I didn't want to re-record the entire episode or like interfere and interject in between was because I feel like it still holds value as is, and that the core point that I'm making in this, meaning that there is value in broadening our horizons from being very analytical to allowing ourselves to actually have an experience and not shield ourselves from that, that is still intact for me. I have no issue with that. I still stand by that. I was just realizing that the part where I feel like I was still in the middle of a process was the fact that how I was talking about, how to deal with these fears that your partner's responsibility isn't to shield you from them, and that you need to be in the awareness of them. And I think that also in part is still true. Like, yeah, of course you don't want to be enabled to stay in your fear, but once you're in the awareness that you have a certain fear, like the fear of abandonment or the fear of spiders, either way, we stick with the image or the literal thing. The question is still, okay, what then is a loving and healing relationship? And at that time when I was recording this, I would say I was still actually judging myself for my need for that. I need a certain degree of caretaking by another person in a romantic relationship. And I think I was still in the stage where I was making myself wrong for that. So that's why I was talking so much about how, the other person shouldn't keep you like out of the awareness that you have a certain fear. Like, now I'm like, yeah, it's good to come into awareness of your fears, but the other person does play a role in alleviating and healing that. And I wasn't really there at the time when I recorded this episode. So I feel like I want to be very clear about that my stance isn't that relationships are about that, oh, your feelings and emotions are your issues and your problems, and the other one shouldn't have anything to do with that. I don't think that's healing. I think healing is to give each other the care and consideration that you need, and to accommodate for that, and to find a partner who is able and willing to do that, and a partner to who it doesn't feel like, oh, this is a chore, but to who this is something, it gives them something to give that to you, that because we are dependent on each other for having social needs met. So of course, ideally, it doesn't feel like an ask to the other person, or not like one that they're really unwilling to give. It has to be an ask where it's like, oh my gosh, I love giving that. I'm so glad you need what I have. It needs to be that type of setup. That is the one thing. And the other thing, I feel like I'm talking down on myself a little bit here, like as if I never let myself have any experiences. That is actually very inaccurate. I am both. I am a very analytical person, but I also, like, when I look at my life, I try stuff all the time. I give myself experiences all the time. So Serene, from the past, from this Mercury retrograde episode, you're being too hard on yourself. You're fine. You're good. Please. And if you who are watching or listening to this need to hear this too, you're fine. You're good. You're doing all the things. And please remember, it's never about fixing you. You are worthy and loved just the way you are right now. And it's about finding the way that works for you just the way you are right now. And that, my friends, is the Mercury retrograde episode of Where the Soulflowers Grow. And I hope you found food for thoughts in this, inspiration for your own journey. And as always, I'm looking forward to connecting with you in the comments. Bye.
Mm-hmm.